Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Karen Chaston and this is the Beyond Loss webinar for this week, where we are going to go on a journey together. We're going to go on a Beyond Loss journey together to see how you can create your better everyday life. So at the moment, I'm waiting for some people to come on board. So, and I understand some people watch it not live, they watch it later. So when you come on board, please type in your name, let me know where you're from, and then I'll share my screen and we'll go through some slides and we'll go on a journey of actually learning why we grieve and suffer so much when loss comes into our lives. And loss comes into our lives in so many different forms that it's really important for us all to understand that it's not just a death of a loved one that we are going to experience in our lives. So welcome. I am sort of excited. Now I'm very excited. But let me go over the shoulder and let me just share my screen so that you can actually see not only who I am, but also what Beyond Loss is all about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some insights, some inspirations, some ways that you can actually move beyond any kind of loss. I see there's a couple of people coming on board. Can you type into the comments? I'm actually using StreamYard to so I can see your comments live and everything. Hi, Alan. Great to see you here. Thank you for being here. And it was, it's just so amazing that I actually get to spend the evening, an hour, sharing this with you. So what I'll do is I'll honor everyone's time and I will get started. So let me set up my little clicker here. So did you realize that our life is an adventure from love to loss and loss to love? We are either in one or the other. And whilst most of us know how to love, there is not many of us that know how to move beyond loss. And I really do feel it's an oversight. And I feel that it is something that it would have been perfect if we all learnt this at school. Would we have valued it? Probably not. But the thing that we would have actually done, and it's just like a maths problem, you know, that you sort of go when you're older, what was that equation again? How did that actually work? And from there, you actually go, oh, wait a minute, that's right, there was a formula. And that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. It is actually a 5-step process. It's not the 5 stages of grief that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross has shared with the world. In some ways, I feel that actually hinders us because her research was amazing, don't get me wrong, and she actually looked into the way that we grieve and suffer, and the results that she came up with were spot on. But what's happened since they've been published is everyone compares themselves to that 5 stages of grief. Oh, okay, I'm in this stage now. I'm in anger. I'm in, depression. But it doesn't have to be that way. And because everyone follows that guideline, they think, well, that's normal. So, but tonight I'm going to share with you a completely different way of looking at love and loss so that we can easily move beyond anything that's happening in our life. It doesn't matter if it's love or loss. So are you ready to really get started? Okay. So I am a Beyond Loss speaker, mentor, expert. And I'm pretty sure there's not many people at school who are actually going, I want to do what Karen's doing. So what actually had to happen in my life for me to turn around and say, this is what I want to do. This is my life's purpose. And so I'm going to take you back to explain that in July 2011, a Sunday morning, the 10th of July, my husband and I woke up thinking we were going to have a lazy day at home. Though within 15 minutes, we were looking at our youngest son, Dan, by a minute. He was 27, lying at our back door in the fetal position with saliva coming out of his mouth. We thought he was just unconscious, though unfortunately the paramedics arrived and they just looked at him for 1 second and they just turned straight to me and they said, "I'm sorry, madam, he is dead. Probably has been for several hours." And this is my beautiful Dan. Oh, wait on, I'm not sharing my screen. I've got to share my screen for you to actually look at that. So this is my beautiful son, Dan. So as you can imagine, it's the last thing anyone expects. And at the time, I was the CFO of a publicly listed company. So I was nothing like I am now. And in order for you to see exactly how I was, here is a photo of me. It was actually taken 4 years before Dan passed. It was taken in 2007. It is my 2007 passport photo because I never kept any photos from around that time. I would literally rip them up. But as you can see, if you look at who I was, so, you know, even 4 years later, I was even more into my corporate space. You can see I'm carrying more weight. You can see that I look very masculine. I haven't even got my lipstick on properly. But if you look into my eyes, you can clearly see that Karen has left the building. And that's exactly the person who I was at that stage. And I refer to those days as me living in a Groundhog Day days. Every day was the same. If anyone had said to me at that time, "How do you cope with stress?" I would have said, "I never get stressed." And I wasn't lying because I was in that heightened state 24/7, which is why I looked the way I did. I now know that Dan's passing was meant to have been my wake-up call. And because I went straight back to work, eating more, drinking more, and working even harder, the universe had to send me another wake-up call. And that came about 15 months after Dan passed in around September 2012, where the company I was working for was merging with another. And they had told me, "Karen, you're not going to be the CFO in a new company. You are going to be doing everything you're doing now plus more. And we want you to come with us." And I just went, "Yeah, sure," until they gave me my contract. And the contract was actually a salary for 2/3 of what my current salary was at that time. And I was really angry. How dare they treat me like that? They told me I was the oracle of the company. How can they do this to me? But within days, I started to wake up from that Groundhog Day days and I started to realize what a gift it was. So I chose V and I took redundancy. And that's when I started on the journey to becoming my own best friend, where I started to put me first. Because as you can see by my last photo, I hadn't really been doing that. I was last on my scale of things. It's also when I started to become a life coach and I started to realize that we don't really know how to move beyond loss. And that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. But just before I do, I have to show you my 2017 passport photo. Look at the difference. Isn't it amazing? You know, the one on the right is 10 years after the one on the left. But I look 10 years younger. So I reckon I've gained 20 years. What do you think? Yes. Hi, Carlene. Nice to see you. Okay, so now let's move on. So my business is called Live Love by Design. And it's purposely called that because most of us don't take the time to design a life that we live and love each and every day. So we're about to figure out how we can do that. Did you realize that there are over 40 different loss events that can affect our lives. When I first read that, I went, no way, there can't be that many. And whilst most of us believe or know that, the major 6 ones are a death of a loved one, a divorce, a partnership separation, a job loss, your health, your wealth, even your pets, there are so many more. So many more. And on average, you will receive a tragic major loss event every 10 to 13 years in your life. Yet none of us really know how to do it. We don't know how to easily move beyond it and create our better everyday life. Well, by the end of our time together this evening, you will definitely know how to do it. I'd like you to meet Ray. Now, Ray is the most amazing man. Have you ever worked in a company where there's this manager that everyone just loves? Whether you work for him directly or not, everyone just loves this person. And this was Ray. I worked with him in the late 80s, early 90s. And he was the guy that would walk up to anyone. He'd know your name. He'd know your family's, your children's names, your husband's name, your wife's names. He was just that sort of guy. And he always made you feel good. He'd always ask you how you were and he'd listen. He wouldn't just be a passing comment. He would stop and he would talk to you. Anyway, the company that I was working for, that we were both working for at that time, went into receivership. And the receivers came in and they decided that we were a little bit top heavy. I wasn't a senior manager at that stage. And so they decided it was time to cull the senior management. And unfortunately, Ray was one of the ones who lost his job. Now, Ray was in his mid-50s and he had this belief that he was never going to get that job again. He was never going to live and love his work, and he was never going to be as full of joy as what he was prior in his previous job. So over the years, Ray's health declined. He became depressed, and he never did find that job that he would love again. And as he became depressed, his health started to fail. He started to spend all of his hard-earned financial gains on getting back his health. And then eventually, Ray lost his life way too early. He left his beautiful wife and kids and grandkids way too early, all because he didn't know how to move beyond his loss. Now, I shared with you that in 2012, I chose redundancy, and Ray popped into my mind. I was sure that I was not going to live the life that Ray had lived after his redundancy. And that's why I went searching. That's why we are here this evening, because I was going to make sure that people knew that if you lost your job or you lost your marriage or your health or your wealth, it doesn't mean that you have to eventually lose your life. You can still find joy again, and you can live and love your life. So as I said, there's over 40 different loss events. And with this recent pandemic, so many of the minor ones are coming to the forefront. Things like loss of freedom, loss of choice, loss of status, changing work conditions, changing social activities, changing recreational activities. I'm going to go full screen on this so that you can all actually see the list of over 40 loss events that can affect your lives. Now, on last week's live Facebook, Beyond Loss webinar, I asked everyone to have a look at the list and add up all of the loss events that have occurred in your life. And I had 21. Previously to last week, the highest was 15. A lady on last week's one said, I have had 21 of those 40 loss events occur in my life. Have a look at the list and let me know how many loss events on that list have actually happened already in your life. And then also let me know if you are still, got the intensity, you still got some pain and suffering when you think about those loss events. Today, while you're looking at it, I'll share a story with you. Received an email today from a lady who actually shared that her mother had passed away 18 months ago. No, just over a year ago, because the anniversary was coming up. And she said her mother was her best friend. And she wasn't coping with her mum not being here. And she'd gained a lot of weight in the 12 months. And she just wasn't feeling herself. She'd started to lose her joy. She started to lose her passion for exercising and looking after herself. So there's so many things that come into your life just from one loss event. It seems to be a bit of a snowball effect. And it really does start to affect all areas of your life, which isn't good because we're all here to thrive. And if we're stuck in one loss event, well, we can't move forward. And what's really interesting while you're still counting, what's really interesting is that a lot of the time the weight gain is the emotions that you haven't allowed to flow easily. Emotions, energy in motions. So when the emotions come into your body, when you're grieving and suffering, they're not there. They're not designed to make you suffer. They're designed to make you aware so that you can allow them to come in and then allow them to move. And that's why it's really interesting to watch how when you are not allowing the grief process to move into you and through you and out of you, they do get stuck. And it can be shown in so many different ways. Something for everyone to think about. Okay. So we've now moved on from there. Carlene, I have 15 of those in the last oh my God, Carlene, in the last 18 months. My life changed when I lost my daughter. It's not easy losing a child, Carlene, and I don't know what you've been through, obviously, even though I have lost my son. It's not easy at all. So I'm glad you're on here tonight, and good on you for being here. And please, let's reach out. Okay, so why do we suffer and grieve so much? It is all because of these three aspects of a relationship, and most of us know it, but we sort of forget it. So the first aspect of every relationship is the physical. And this is the way that we hang out together, the things we do, the things we say, the way we touch each other. The second aspect is the emotional side. Now, the emotional side is all encompassing of all of our feelings, the good, the bad, the glad, and the sad. And then the third aspect is the spiritual. Now, the spiritual is that intangible part. We know we're connected. We're not really sure why we're so connected to this person, place, or thing, but we just know that there is this energy connection to us all. So when the loss event occurs, whatever loss event, any of the 40 different loss events, it's the physical aspect that ends because we'll no longer hang out together the way we did, whether they're in this realm or the next. We won't talk to them. We won't do things with them. We won't touch each other the way we used to. But it's important for us all to realize that the emotional and the spiritual aspect live on forever. And it's the emotional aspect that causes us all the pain and the suffering. And this is because of what I have chosen to call the unconscious mind loss loop. Excuse me, I'll just take a little sip. Thank you. So, when the loss event occurs, our unconscious mind goes over everything that has happened in that relationship. Now, if it's a relationship with your parents, for example, it will go from the day you were born, well, actually, while you're in the womb, up until the day that they passed. If it's, for example, as Carleen has said, the loss of her daughter, so that went from the time of her daughter's birth, or even as she was in the womb, until her death. So it could be a long relationship, or it could be only a minor, like lengthwise relationship. But our unconscious mind remembers every single millisecond of that relationship. So it goes into this unconscious mind loss loop, asking questions like, I wish I had. Why didn't I? What else have I got there? Sorry, I can hardly see. If only. We should have. Why didn't they? Or why did I? So we're consciously going over and over and over asking these questions. And that's what's causing us to grieve and suffer, because we're not even consciously aware that we are asking ourselves these questions and constantly going over and over and over the relationship. And what I'm going to share with you tonight is how you can ask the questions, answer them, and then move forward so that you can have a healthy emotional relationship moving forward. So remember, it's our actions, our inactions, and our postponements that are that have created all of these questions. As I said earlier, Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief are amazing. That's exactly how we have all been doing loss. She said that we go into denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then we go into acceptance. But we don't go in them in that order. We go in and out of all of them, and they can be any way, and multiple times we can be in all of them before we come to acceptance. This also causes us to grieve and suffer because we're comparing the way that we're doing it to the way other people are doing it, and the way she suggested is normal. Also, our beliefs can get in our ways. The things that are said to us, that have been said to us our whole life by other people. Things like, just give it time, keep busy, grieve alone in isolation, replace the loss, and be strong for others. Doesn't help when you're in that situation when people continually say these things to you. And I can turn around and go, tick, 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 tick. Yes, I have done that. The cliches that are said to us and have been said for centuries and centuries and centuries, they're in our DNA. Things like, get a hold of yourself. The living must go on. You can't fall apart. Be thankful you have. Now, believe it or not, at Dan's funeral, someone said to me, be thankful you have 2 other sons. They didn't realize what they were saying. They didn't know what to say. They were uncomfortable because we've never been taught what to say or do. But before this webinar is out, I'm going to give you the most ideal thing for you to say and do. We understand how you feel. No, we don't. No one knows how anyone else feels. We assume that we know how other people feel. We think people feel the same way we feel, but we're all unique. Every relationship in our life is unique. So how can we know how anyone else feels? We've never walked an inch in anyone else's shoes. That's why when Kayleen said that she lost her daughter, I don't know how she feels. I can assume that I have a similar experience, so I can think I know how she feels, but I don't. And no one ever does. And then, of course, you're strong, you'll be okay. And that's something that was said to me from my first text on the day Dan passed, and people still say it to me. But what if you don't want to be strong? It's about us realizing that these are cliches. And if we just take a breath before we say them to other people, we then can be there for them more, which is what I'm going to share with you later. And then it comes to our coping strategies. Remember, we're going through why we grieve and suffer so much. So there are 3 ideal ways for us to move beyond any kind of loss. And the first coping strategy is to be active, to actually actively seek ways that we can move beyond, that we can actually move beyond that unconscious loss loop that is going over and over in our heads. Now, you've probably noticed by now, my branding is my heart and also my beautiful lady. And I love these 3 words, the way that the lady is coming on the eye, because she literally is showing you how to do each of these ones. And the first one is for you to act, not to sit around and wait, but to act, to get into action, positive action, not avoidance action, positive action. The second one is to be passive. And in this case, are you passing on life? More than likely you are, because you're sitting around just letting the world go on without you, and you've just been passive. And I totally understand it's the best thing to do for a couple of days, but not a couple of years, as a lot of people do. And then the third one is avoidance. And that's where most of us go. It's just easier to avoid. It's really hard to be active because you've got to process those emotions, and they're painful. And in this case, the way she's come in, she's clearly highlighted dance. And every time I see it, I'm always reminded of Dr. Wayne Dyer's infamous saying, don't die with your music still in you. So I have to ask the question, if you're in avoidance, are you dancing with the devil? Or are you dancing with your life? Something that we all really need to ask ourselves. And obviously, the ideal way is to get into active. And that's everything that what I'll be sharing with you tonight. So if we're in avoidance, we sort of go into an avoidance loop because, as I said, we start to say things to quieten down that unconscious mind loss loop that's going on. And, we'll say things like, oh, this is too hard. I can't get out of bed. What's the point of living? No one gets me. If I'll never be successful and nothing matters anymore. And I'm pretty sure that when we all have a great tragic loss in our life, we can all relate to the things that we say to ourselves just to go into avoidance. We even create all of these tactics, things like food, alcohol, drugs, anger, exercise. If I just exercise more and more and more, everything will be fine. What are you running from? Or overworking, isolation. It's just so much easier. No one gets me. I might as well be by myself. Oh, we live in a world of fantasy. Now, let's face, escapism is the best way for us to avoid, because we could join to a Netflix 24/7 forever and feel that we're actually okay. Or sex, or retail therapy. Seriously? Excess shopping is called retail therapy. How is it therapy? So when you look at all of those, and I can go tick, 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 we do them all, but it's about us starting to realize what is our avoidance tactics. Because when we understand what we're doing to avoid becoming active, we can then start to know, okay, next time loss comes to visit, and it will, because there's over 40 different loss events, we can easily say, right, oh, wait a minute, I'm in avoidance. What do I need to become active? The whole world can be in avoidance. We have created trillion-dollar alcohol and pharmaceutical industries because they're the best avoidance, easy ways. They're legal most of the time. So they're not avoiding if I'm allowed to buy them easily. But are we avoiding? We know we're avoiding. And just look at the suicide rate. It's because we're avoiding because we're allowing people to go into isolation because we don't know what to do and say. We don't know how to be there for people, for ourselves. And that's why I love what I'm doing, because I do have the 5-step process that will assist you. Okay, before I go into this, when I talk too much, I cough. Okay, questions. Let's go to questions where I can have a look at them. Okay. I've broken media involved and detects. Okay, wait a minute. I have 15 in the last 4 months. My life changed when I lost my daughter. I've broken media involved and detectives. Okay. I don't know how to respond to that, Carlene, because I'm not really sure, but I can understand how broken you are. So let's have a look at ways that we can assist you to be able to move beyond and create your better everyday life. Now, in this slide, imagine yourself. You're 90 years old and you're looking out at your beautiful lake, and you ask yourself the question, did I live a successful life? What would be your answer? Would you have many regrets? Would you actually say, you know what? I was active for most of my life. Everything that came to me, I learned. I learned how to move beyond loss. I learned how to love. I've lived a great life. I have no regrets. So I was a very successful life. And then if you sort of think, we don't really have an expiry date on our birth certificate, so there's no guarantee that I'm even going to get to 90 to be able to sit there and ask that question. So what if in the next week I asked myself that question? What would the answer be? It's something for us all to contemplate. It's really important for us all to actually start asking ourselves those tough questions, because it's through the questions that we actually can create the life that we want to live and love. You know, questions is another word. Quest-ons. It's like the quest on the journey to where, we're going to be. Thank you, Paula. So, are you ready to stop suffering and grieving? That's the question that everyone's got to start asking themselves, because we don't have to be in avoidance. We can easily move beyond, and that's what I'm going to share with you now. And this is how we get into the active loop. And I'm going to go full screen on the active loop, because seriously, this is what we all can be in. Because when we're in the active group, we can go from, okay, let's stop. Let's take a breath. Let's allow all of the feelings. And then you can say, I can choose the time frame. No one's going to tell me that it takes time or it's this. I will do it in my time. And then you can say, who understands what I'm going through? Who can assist me with this? And I want to figure it out so I can create my best everyday life. So this is how we get active, because it's about us becoming responsible. And once we're responsible, we can easily move beyond. So just imagine your life if you could stop suffering right now from any of your loss events. You can have a healthy emotional relationship in regards to every single loss event. You can work through all your past losses. You know how to easily move beyond further losses, because it's a 5-step process that works for every single loss, no matter which one of the 40s. You know how to assist your friends when they go through their losses, and you create your better everyday life. How does that sound? And that's where you can come into knowing that love and loss is just another part of life. They're even. It doesn't matter where you are, you know how to easily do either. And this is where I created the 5-step gift of loss process. Now, I totally understand that a lot of you are going to go, Karen, you lost your son. How can you possibly say that was a gift of loss? And it's not in the actual loss event that you unwrap the gift. The gift comes when you become active and you create the life that you live and love. I am completely different to who I was when Dan passed. Now, I would love Dan to be here, but he's not physically here. He is here in every other way, believe me. I swear, he plants these ideas in my head. He gets me here doing all of this, and yes, I do love it, but I know that he has got my back and he is pushing me forward all of the way. Because he didn't like the way I grieved. I didn't honour him and I didn't honour me. But I did what everyone does because that's what we've been taught for centuries and centuries. And it's time for us to know a better way. And that's why I'm here. So it's the gift of who you become. It's what you unwrap. Because as you will see when we go through this 5-step process, it is all about you creating a life that is better than the one that you had before the loss event. Rightio. So the first step is, wait for it, is to stop. Oh, surprise, surprise. We're all in this pandemic, and what have we all been told to do? To stop. The gift is in the stopping is that you will take that conscious loving breath. You know the one where you breathe deep into your belly and you fill yourself up with all of the power, the wisdom, and the love that is required for you to actually look at what has happened, what it means for you now, and what it means for you going forward. And that assists you to then become to acceptance. This is the second step. Kubler-Ross had acceptance at last. As soon as we stop, we can accept. And it's in this acceptance that you take responsibility. You take responsibility for every single part of your relationship. You're part of the relationship that you are now grieving and suffering. That's why we go into that unconscious mind loss loop, is because of the things that we had done and said or didn't do and say, the things they did and said or didn't do and say, the things that we postponed. It's about us understanding all of that, because once we accept it, we can then actively move into the third step, which is to identify, after we take responsibility, now I've gone too far. Isn't it? Let's go back. So once you take acceptance, you take responsibility for it all, you are no longer in the blame game. Now, I love to break up words. Let's look at blame. There's blah, and then there's me. If you're in the blah, 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 blah of what has happened, you have forgotten about me, as in yourself. So when we get out of the blame game, we're back to taking responsibility for who we are. Because once we do that, we can go into the next step, which is to identify. And I love identify, because that is where we can deep dive into the relationship. And every single relationship has hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Let's deep dive in to see what they were, to realize that we're not going to happen the way we thought they were. But once we know that, we then can actively design a way for them to happen. We also deep dive and identify every part of the relationship where we may possibly want to apologize, forgive, and acknowledge. Thank you. That's the beautiful part of identify, because once we have all of that together, we can then complete the relationship. And that's what it's all about. completing the emotional relationship so we can have a healthy emotional relationship moving forward. And then we can do the pivot. And that's what this is all about, for us to pivot, for us to go, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. What are the action steps, the skills, everything required so that I can close that gap and close that gap and close that gap? This is the 5-step process on how you can unwrap the gift of loss. For any sort of loss event, it doesn't matter which one it is, this works for them all. Let me just go. And as I said, it's in every single area of your life. And in the Live, Love by Design area, there's 9. And because there's 9, I brought it down into 4 pillars. All about you, all about your relationships, all about your expertise, and all about your wealth creation. Okay, Kayleen's been writing some stuff. Hi, Paula. Thank you. Kayleen, I have stopped working, and yes, my daughter wrote. Good on you, Kayleen. Thank you. Excellent. I totally understand, Kayleen, but yeah, and thank you for acknowledging that. Okay. So this is the 5-step gift of loss process. And as I said, it doesn't matter what sort of loss event, you can easily move beyond. So now's the time. Remember, I told you that I would tell you the perfect thing to say no matter what loss event has happened. So how this all came about was back in January, I was on a UK podcast with a young man. He was in his late 20s. And he said to me, Karen, as a beyond loss expert, please tell me what to say at a funeral. I was recently at one of our friends had committed suicide. And we were in a big huddle, all of our friends. There was about 10 of us. And we were all looking at each other going, what do we say? What do we say? Tell me what to say. We know the parents. We have to go and say something. I don't know what to say. And he said, what would you have said? And I said, exactly what you just said. And he goes, what do you mean? And I went, that's what you say. You just walk up to them and you say, I don't know what to say. I have no idea what you are feeling. I've never experienced anything like this, but I want to be here for you. So please tell me the best way that I can assist you at this time. And then you listen, actively listen, not to answer, just to hear how you can assist them. Now, that is the perfect thing to say, no matter what loss event any of your friends, family, colleagues are going through. There will be a different answer every time you say it, but that is the way you can be there. You don't have to say any of the cliches or the beliefs, all of the things that have been said for centuries and centuries. When you say something like that, you're truly there for them because you know what to say. So that is one of my gifts for you today. Okay. So are you ready to stop grieving and suffering, or suffering and grieving? That is the question. And I feel that the fact that you're here tonight, you are, because otherwise you could have been in avoidance and doing a Netflix marathon or something like that. So remember Ray. He had so many loss events, all because he didn't know how to move on from being made redundant. I don't want that for anyone. I want everyone to be able to live and love their life because that's what we're here to do. So it's time for you to decide how you want to spend the rest of your life. Do you want to be grieving and suffering, or do you want to know how to actively have loss and love as an equal part of your life, that it doesn't matter which is currently in your life, you know what to do. You're resilient. You know the steps to move forward in love or loss. It doesn't matter. It may bring you down for a couple of seconds, even a minute, even a day. But after that, I know what to actively do now. This is what I'm going to do. So it's up to you to decide right now which way you want to spend the rest of your life. because you can create a life where you stop suffering, you have a healthy emotional relationship, you work through all of your past loss events, and you know how to do it in the future. You can be there for your friends and family, and you can create your better everyday life. And I have created the Beyond Loss virtual retreat, which is 3 ways that you can do it. The first way is at your pace. The second way is in a group dynamic. And the third way is one-to-one with me. I'm KC, if you didn't realise. So let's have a look at your pace. So your pace is 36 video lessons, which are given to you that you can work through at your own pace. They're drip fed to you over 9 weeks. You have unlimited access, and you can choose your Beyond Loss partner. So a Beyond Loss partner is someone that works with you at certain activities throughout the 36 videos. Don't worry, it's clearly explained what's required for you to choose the perfect partner, and also for them to watch a video so they know how to be a perfect partner. So that's the first phase, which is your pace. The second one, which is the most common one, is the group dynamic. So you still have the same 36 video lessons. You get them over 9 inspired learning weeks. We also have a weekly group Q&A, which is 90 minutes a week, where we discuss the previous week's videos and we go through them. And that's what one thing about a group dynamic is, everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has a different understanding. So we get to learn and grow in so many different ways. You will be assigned your Beyond Loss partner from one of the group members. You will quickly move beyond your loss. You'll have unlimited access to the videos. And as I said, you'll receive the benefits of a group dynamics. Now, the group dynamic, the next one is commencing Monday, the 7th of September. So if you choose to do the group dynamic, now is the time for you to book in, because there's limited spaces, and believe me, they are filling very quickly. And then, of course, the last one is the KC one-to-one, where I am focused on your personal Beyond Loss journey. We have 30 minutes before planning session. Then I will accelerate your journey. I am your Beyond Loss partner, obviously, and you have the ability to work through multiple loss events, unlimited access to the material, and you can create your better everyday life sooner. So that's the question. Are you ready to stop grieving and suffering? Because now is the time for you to figure out, to choose which life you prefer. Do you want to grieve and suffer, or do you want to actually know how to live and love through loss or love? It doesn't really matter. So the Beyond Loss retreat, the 3 partners are at your pace. It is only $495. The group dynamics is only $891, and the KC one-to-one is $1,800. So within 5 90-minute sessions, you could move beyond what you are grieving and suffering now for $1,800, or over 9 weeks for the $495 or the $891. There is the link for you to choose to go to, and I will also post them. So obviously that, and you can't really read that. I need to do it. I just want them side by side. I'm going to have to figure out how to do that so it's nicer and you can read it. Okay. So as I said, they are the 3 losses. And I've just got to ask the question, are you ready to stop suffering and grieving? The group dynamic, remember, is on the 7th of September, and there's the link to that. If you follow that link, there is access to the whole 3 of them, and then you just choose which one you'd like to, which pathway you'd like to take. Okay, I'm going to take questions now. No, that's not it. I'm just going to post the links. That's the wrong one that I copied. Let me delete all that. Oh, it's not going to let me delete it. Okay. Oh, thanks, Paula. Now, wait a minute. Unfortunately, I've gone tight. Okay, that looks like that's deleted it. Let me just copy these links so that you can easily see them in the chat. Right. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thanks, Paula. All right, there's the 3 links. enter, enter, enter. So anyone can go to them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to me eventually. Right, I'll come back to me. The links are in the questions, and I'm going to, right, did the links come up? Doesn't look like it. Let me go here, delete, chat. Technology show. Okay, the links are now in the chat. So let me go back. Kayleen, thank you for being such an active member tonight. I really appreciate it. Let me go back to our last thing that I've read. Okay, my motto has always been to live, love, and laugh. Thank you. And I totally agree. Life is way too short not to be living and loving your life. Oh, she was the same age as Dan. That 27 club is such a bugger, isn't it? Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, is there any other questions? Look at the time. Yes, 751. I'd really appreciate everyone from being still here with me. If there are any other questions, I would love to answer the questions. Anything about the program, anything about how you can get active, things that you can do. I really would just love for anyone to ask a question so that I can assist you this evening, because you know, as you said, Carleen, life is way too short to be grieving and suffering. You know, we don't know when. We don't have an expiry date on our birth certificate, so it is about learning to live and love our lives. We are the only person we are going to spend our entire life with. So it is about us knowing how to ensure that we are living and loving our lives. And, you know, of course, it's tragic when we lose someone. No, Carleen, I'm not in New Zealand. I'm in Australia, on the Gold Coast, just near Brisbane. But I work with a lot of people in New Zealand because it's only 2 hours away, and we have these amazing things like Zoom. And actually, a lot of people who have already come into the group dynamic are in New Zealand. And of course, when we set up the time for our 90-minute catch-ups each week, our Q&A sessions, it will be at a time that we will ensure that, you know, the majority of people can come on at that time. We will also have recordings of it, so it won't be all that drastic. And of course, if you have questions before and you can't make it live, we will then make sure that we answer those questions live during that 90-minute session. Thank you, dear. Love, light, and blessings. And thank you to you too. Right. I don't know if there's any more questions. I don't want to stay if no one's got any questions, and I don't want to obviously go if you still have any questions. Okay. Well, I am going to leave. So thank you all for being here. And I will leave this recording up for a day or so. And then, of course, it will be absolutely fabulous for you to reach out. And, of course, one of the links that I put in there is for you to just reach out to me at any time at all, because I love to help people to know that grieving and suffering doesn't have to be that way. So I'm going to end the broadcast now. So thank you very much. Unless there's any more questions, doesn't look like it. Okay. Thanks, everyone, and bye for now.